define our process, because there's going to be points in times where I just sit for too long in something.
Yeah.
I sit in that messy middle, that complex middle, and overanalyze things. I think the question, how do we trust ourselves, trust our gut to make good decisions? It starts with being very self-aware.
All right, well, welcome back, everybody. This is another episode of Money Therapy. I'm one of your co-hosts, Bill McGill. Alongside me,
Brandon Chasteen.
And the wheels are coming off, my friends. Brandon has told me I get to intro this episode, and I'm pretty excited for it.
I'm not the boss, man. You're always welcome to intro it.
Well, here we go. All right, so today we are talking about decision making. It's very, very interesting. If you get the Sunday series email, this is where a lot of our topics come from. If you don't know what the Sunday series email is, it's an email that comes out every Sunday that Brandon puts together from Harpeth Wealth Partners. It's designed to be a 2 to 3 minute read to just get the juices in the brain flowing, get you thinking about that next week, and then we like to talk about it here on our podcast. So today we're talking about decision making. Comes with a great little diagram. Basically, we're talking about how people think they make decisions and how people actually make decisions, and then maybe even, helpful tips on how you can make decisions. What I mean by that is I find a lot of times, especially with clients and friends and family members, when people are telling a story or something about, maybe a problem they have in their life or that they were solving, they seem to just make simple decisions very quickly. And the decisions seem to be very, very simple from the get-go. But what really happens when we're talking about, maybe life changes, maybe job changes or whatever it may be, it could just be it comes out in the beginning as a simple decision. And then we start all the worrying, all the research, all of the pros and cons lists, and it gets real messy in the middle. And we tend to call that complexity, right? Some people call it research, but we like to call it complexity. And so that's honestly, people spend a lot of time in that system and sometimes even get stuck there. And we're going to talk about ways to get out of that, ways to realize that you're in it, and then how to rely on maybe financial professionals or professionals around you in your life, no matter what problems you're dealing with, how to navigate out of that and how to use use the resources around you to do it.
Yeah, I think, in the article, the thought process came to mind because I meet with clients all the time, and they come to me with a problem, right? Sure. Most of our interactions with people start because there's a problem presenting itself.
Sure.
And most of the time, they come to me and say something like, hey, I'm pretty sure I know the answer here.
Yeah.
But can you help me make sure it's the right one?
Yeah.
And when I heard this, I kind of see this idea of like the simple problem arising. And then they're like, yeah, this is what I need to do.
Sure.
But then they're like, well, before I do this, I just want to check one thing.
Yeah.
So do this. The research starts.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what's this? And then the research goes deeper.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden there's this like divergence where, well, if this is the goal, then I need to go this way. But if this is the goal, I need to go this way. And then you kind of like, morph your decision or morph your decision that you're making, and you run it by a friend. You're like, hey, Bill, I'm about to do this, and I think this is the right thing to do. Is this a good idea? And Bill's like, yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah. And so then I'm like, well, okay, it was really good for you to affirm me, Bill, but I'm going to ask one more person. Yeah. Go ask that person. Well, no, that's a stupid idea. You should do it this way. Yeah. Well, why should I do it that way? Well, because of this. Oh, I didn't know about that. Right? So now all of a sudden, the idea here is we find ourselves in this like stuck inside this ball of yarn.
Yeah.
And we just continue like wrapping ourselves up in this thing that we're stuck. We get stuck in that research phase.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're coining as that messy, complex middle.
Yeah. Now, question for you. Excuse me. Question for you. How often would you say in the appointment, because this happens to me all the time, but what you just described basically comes out and they'll usually say something along these lines. They'll usually say, well, I heard I should be doing this and I heard I should be doing that. What do you think? Do you ever get that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I think, that they're stuck in that complex middle. And I think one of the value adds that we have when working with clients is that we've seen this stuff time and time again. So not only can we offer, kind of paths out of the messy middle to the point of decision, but we can also offer different perspectives. We can help frame thoughts and put plans to thoughts, and just kind of offer that path from simple entry to the complex middle, and then the complex middle getting through it, not to be stuck there forever. But the really unique thing, so I want to mention, there's a book called Blink. Okay. And the book is written by Malcolm Gladwell, who's a wonderful psychologist. And in this book, Blink, he looks at this this research, and it's really interesting. But this idea that sometimes people can come to a decision point in life, and we all know people like this, right? Like, it seems like they cannot make a wrong decision. Like, whatever they decide, it works out for them.
Yeah.
And
everything
it's kind of
a touch turns to gold.
It's kind of annoying, right? Like, but there's a lot of research,
I hate those people.
There's a lot of research that Malcolm presents, and the wild thing here is just this notion. Like, my question is, how? Not only how do we get good at making decisions, but when and how, especially on big life decisions, right?
Sure.
How do I trust my gut? Like, that right there, is, people will come to me and they'll have all the work done, probably most of the time. Now, am I going to, again, play devil's advocate, present other possibilities, check their work and make sure they're seeing everything? Yeah. I had a client come in a couple weeks ago and we're solving for some income in retirement. We got about 4 years left to make some pretty big moves. And he was like, well, somebody told me to explore this. Is this worth it? Should I do this? Should I do this? What should we do about this problem? And I mentioned this notion of provisional income because he's frustrated about taxes.
Yeah.
And when you're, if you're working right now, especially if you're W-2, you're just getting this net income check, right? You're not really experiencing the burden of taxes in the same way as somebody when they're in retirement and they're going to make $100,000 as an example. And if they're in a 12% tax bracket, that means that they have to write $12,000 in this example, a $12,000 check to the IRS.
Ouch.
Well, if I'm giving you $100,000, that's like a month and a half of income, right? So what do we need to do to lower?
Or a year and a half, not a month and a half.
No, 12,000.
Oh, okay.
Would be about a month and a half of their income.
Oh, my bad.
So if the thing is they're experiencing this burden, and it's like, can we do anything to still pay the IRS the taxes we owe? Nobody's suggesting that we should cheat on taxes by any means. I think everybody is comfortable paying what we owe. Not like it, but we're comfortable with it. But sometimes, just by nature of understanding all the rules, we can make insane decisions, like insane impact. So there's this little thing called provisional income.
Yeah.
And he wasn't aware of all the rules, the way that it lays out. And I was like, hey, here's an idea. Here is a financial plan.
Yeah. We
projected income for the next 12 years for this couple, and their tax bill, according to a CPA with CPA software.
Sure.
I don't give tax advice, but understanding the provisional income piece, we just were pulling funds from different sources.
Yeah.
Same amount though.
Sure.
But cut his tax bill down exponentially.
Yeah.
He gets to spend more every month now. And the thing is so sometimes we don't know what we don't know.
Sure.
But sometimes I have clients come in his case, he didn't know what he didn't know, and we talked, and through this process of the messy middle, we came out with this awesome solution.
Yeah.
On the flip side, I have a client who came in and said, I think I know what I need to do. Can you check this for me?
Sure.
We get that all the time.
All the time.
All the time. People want affirmation.
Yeah.
Right. And this guy's intelligent. Him and his wife both. They're very, very intelligent. But she just wanted that affirmation, and that's part of my value is being like, according to, my expertise, my technology, my stuff that I have, my resources that I have. Good idea.
Sure.
So now they go with the confidence. But my question in this is, how do we learn to just trust our gut? And is there ever a point where we get good enough to where simple thing facing me, I get into that complex and messy middle, I'm doing my research, I'm doing all this stuff. Should we get to a point where we just can trust ourselves? Or, I mean, obviously there's benefit, but is it almost a necessity to bring someone else into that process with us? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Go. What's your thoughts?
Well, we talk about, balance a lot of times on this podcast. The balance seems to be a theme that always comes up. And I think it's definitely smart to look left and look right before you cross the street.
Yeah.
No matter what you're doing. But if you're standing there for 5 minutes, looking left, looking right, to make sure it's safe to cross the street, maybe you do need somebody in your corner to say, "Hey, you're good. Follow your gut." And I think part of that job's on us as educators and coaches, and financial advisors. I say coaches because we do a lot of coaching, right?
Right.
And what I try and do when I'm in, what I find that helps the client a lot of times is if I'm in a particular appointment and we're going over, a financial goal and what they've done in the past. If they've done something really, really good, I tell them that your instincts are good. And I've used that language exactly before. Because they'll say things to us that, again, are based on, they come from an emotional place while we're thinking numbers. And so we may have, okay, if this person puts X amount of money away into an IRA, it used to be $500 a month. It's gone on up since then. But if this person's putting $500 away into an IRA, we call that maxing out. That's really excellent. In our book, check. That's awesome. Right? For most people out there. Well, they may come to you and say, well, I just wanted to put a little money away. I heard the IRA was probably a good thing. And so I wanted to put a little money away for the future. Okay. That's coming from a gut instinct, right? They've already kind of gone through that process of learning about something, finding out the pros and cons of it, and then making that decision and go forward. And they don't really, sometimes they don't know it, but they are looking for confirmation that, check, you're doing great. Right. So we're thinking of all the numbers. They're thinking of the emotion. Mm-hmm. And so they come to us and say, like I said, I was just putting money away because I thought it was a good thing. I will always tell that client, your gut instinct is excellent. That was a really good decision. Like regardless on where they're at in their situation today, I may need to take that off the table for a while, depending on what our plan is. My advice at the end of the day may be, stop your IRA for a second and let's focus over here doing what we need to do. Right. But it doesn't make that, a poor decision.
Right.
So I think part of reinstilling confidence in our clients and people that we meet every day, it's important to call that out when they do listen to that gut instinct and give people that confidence of, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do a little bit of research and I'm going to figure out a general idea of, is this a good idea? Is this not a good idea? But then I'm either going to make a decision, but also give myself options, or I'm going to get a coach in my corner to help me through this. And if you're either taking action and making the decision or finding a coach to help you make that decision, you're still taking action. And that's one way to not get stuck in that hairy middle.
I think that the important piece here is, to get to a point where we can trust our gut and do it well is one, we have to have a willingness to like listen to people and listen to criticism, right?
Sure.
And understand that, some people genuinely want to give me helpful advice. Two truths in that, though, is not every piece of good, genuine helping advice is good advice.
Sure.
Right. And not every hard to hear advice is bad advice. Right.
True.
So we really got to learn how to do this. I think what it boils down to is we have to have a process and we have to practice the process. So if I'm going to make a decision, maybe I start simply.
Yeah.
Right. So define what my decision-making process is for myself. If the decision starts with like a 10,000 foot Google search, and then I want to explore 3 subtopics, and then I want to take my research and present it to a friend that I trust or a professional that I trust. And then I want to, go through 2, 3, 4 conversations with that person after presenting it with them. List the process. And the process could be big, it could be small, but it's yours. And it's something you practice.
Yeah.
Right. And I think if you start as something as small as like dinner, right? Then all of a sudden with the dinner process, like, okay, what do I want for dinner? How do I trust that I'm making a good decision for dinner? If you go through the process and you exercise it and you get good at your process, eventually you'll be able to expedite the process. And I think in terms of that book, Blink, it's just like this notion of once I'm good at it and I'm realizing that I'm capable of good decisions, I think that we have more trust in ourselves. You brought up a good point where you talked about how sometimes we could just get stuck at on the sidewalk at the intersection, looking left and right. Looking left and right is the research, and it's important to do research. But if I'm standing there for 5 minutes, there's also an opportunity cost, right? That analysis paralysis, that getting stuck inside. And I think that we have to, again, define our process, because there's going to be points in times where I just sit for too long in something.
Yeah.
I sit in that messy middle, that complex middle, and overanalyze things. I think the question, how do we trust ourselves, trust our gut to make good decisions? It starts with being very self-aware. Are we capable? Like, is it something that we should spend so much time on learning to trust ourselves? Or, I really value constructive feedback and the notion that there's stronger results in making a decision inside of a tribe, right? Involving other people, where I don't really, it's not a huge value. Like, I'm not seeking to just be super capable of trusting myself, because I want to incorporate other smart people. Like, I have a group of guys, I have family members, brothers and sisters that I can call on and get really strong feedback from. But there is also still this point in me where I know it's on me at the end of the day to make the decision.
Yeah.
Tell the clients the same thing. Like, hey, at best here, I'm a co-pilot. At the end of this, you're going to make the decision. My role in this, I'm going to educate you. I'm going to play devil's advocate to make sure we're thinking through everything. And then I'm going to present you with some options at the end, maybe 3, where none of them are going to set you up for failure.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a best one, but maybe the best one you don't feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think that's a huge point. As the one thing that I wrote on my paper before this was, find a coach, and coaches lead you out of that complexity and out of that research. And I think that's important. What you just said is offering people options, in that there's risk in everything that we do. No matter what. If you leave your money in the bank, we call it inflation risk. Whereas, yes, your money is secure and backed by the government and all those things, but inflation is eating away at that cash because it's not growing, right? People, how many times have you heard that our cash is totally safe, it's in the bank?
Right.
Well, it's not. There's an element of risk to everything. And I think as coaches, one of the things that we do within our process of figuring out what's important to you, what is your goal, where are we trying to get to, what is on your mind when you come into my office. And we've talked about this before. Most of the time it's triggered by some event or something happening in their lives. They just had a kid and, oh my gosh, now I got to think about college. Let's go talk to Brandon or Bill. When we're going through that process and offering people options, I think in our own way, that's how we acknowledge that there's risk with everything. And we talk about presenting options that are all adaptable because life is always changing. And so the point is not to be 100% right all of the time about everything. The point is to do your best, do the research that's necessary to feel that you are making a good decision. And then your coach is hopefully there to push you along to say, yeah, we're going to pick, here's 3 options. It seems like based on our conversation, option 2 is the best for now. If we got to change to option 1 or 3 later, we can always do that because we've interchanged all these to be adaptive and everything. And I think that's one of the reasons why sometimes for us, it can be perceived as easier to get people out of that complexity. Because when you're in that complexity and I got half the people telling me to do one thing and half the people telling me to do the other, and now we don't know what to do. You've got an unbiased person that says, hey, stop all that. We got 3 options here. We're going to pick one. And if that, we get a couple years down the road, it doesn't work, we're going to go to option 2. And that oftentimes, again, it alleviates all kinds of anxiety, worry, all those things that we always talk about. But it promotes action. And it's perceived as kind of an easy fix.
So, but like one thing, like when you're working with a client, are you telling your client what to do at the end of the conversation?
No, I'm giving them options.
You're giving them options. So
yeah.
My question is if you present to me 3 options,
yeah,
how do I know I'm capable of making the right decision? Like I don't need to know that I'm definitively making the right decision.
Yeah.
But I want to have the confidence that I'm capable of making a right decision. Because like I think back, like how many people do we talk to that's, will jokingly say at different times, trying to think of just like a circumstance where this came up last time, but it's like, yeah, I'm terrible at multiple choice test.
Yeah.
Right. If I put something in front of somebody and I'm like, A, B, and C.
Yeah.
That could be overwhelming to them.
Could be.
Right. So it's a hard balance because I think where like sometimes I've met clients, they're like, Brandon, I just want you to tell me what to do. And I'm like, sorry, that's not what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
That's not my job. It's not safe for any of us to do that. So like instead, let's go through a process.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I still don't know what to choose. And I think my kind of feedback is let's just start doing some exercises where we just sit quietly. Like no distractions. Let's just get quiet with our thoughts.
Okay.
And then at the end of, 30 minutes, let's talk about things that like just blank sheet of paper. And I'm just going to get quiet and sit with nothing else but pen and paper for 30 minutes and any thoughts that come to mind. Like I'm hungry. I'm, whatever, like bird just flew outside the window. Like, or I'm really thinking about this and I really think that this might be the way to go. And here's why. Like through the process of sitting quietly, we learn how to listen to our gut, ourself. Like, depending on your faith, you might call it, God, you might call it
prayer,
the universe, right? We all have our own things that like draw us in. We have our self, our gut, our internal monologue. And I think if we get good at just sitting quietly and listening and taking notes of what we're telling ourselves,
sure,
all on that messy sheet of paper at the end of 30 minutes of sketches and thoughts and whatever I write down, there'll be some weird stuff.
Yeah.
Right. There'll be some nonsense, some really random thoughts or intrusive thoughts, but there might be something on that piece of paper that would really be like, this is it. And here's the thing. If we start doing that, whether it's daily or maybe multiple times a day with every decision, like, hey, what do you want for dinner? Let me just sit here for 5 minutes. Let me just write down some things that come to mind. Like pizza just came to mind. Well, I just had pizza. I don't really want pizza. You know, like just keep going with the internal monologue to the point where you write down all these notes and you learn that like through that process, there's some gold inside of us. And I think partnering with someone in that coaching thing that can draw us out. And I've done this before with clients. We've literally sat at this table across from one another, just quietly writing things down on a piece of paper, like anything that pops up.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that, we circle some things to share with one another. Mm-hmm. And it's like that right there. That's the decision.
Yeah.
That's the one. You had it in you the whole time.
Yeah.
And so celebrating that, but you got to ask yourself, the question that we're asking ourselves in that quiet space is, what feels right?
Yeah.
I can tell you what is right numerically, to your point. You know, I can do the math, but the most mathematically perfect decision for you could be the worst decision for you. If it makes you feel unsafe, if it makes you feel anxious, nervous, and then there could be a really good decision that makes you feel perfect. And that's the one we want.
Yeah.
Right. So I know the math of the decision. Yeah. I don't know what you feel. You have to convey that.
But I also think that there's, on the other side of the coin, I think part of our job is to sometimes nudge a client to the point where the first day they see us, they may be uncomfortable with a certain decision, but then they eventually get comfortable. And what I mean by that is, for instance, I had a client that just wanted to put money into cash, like investments. And that's how they wanted to save for retirement. Well, you and I both know that is not a great way to save for retirement. We do know the math. We, you know, from a very general perspective, in the stock market, historically speaking, you're probably going to make more money on your money than the money sitting at the bank, right?
I don't know if I think I disagree a little bit with that in his specific situation. You know, if we're suggesting, like, I think you're right. I do agree that we're there to nudge our clients, but my job is to nudge the client to making a decision good for them.
Sure.
Not to make a decision good for. Now, what I would say to that person is, look, if this is your comfort zone, you're doing all the work.
Yeah.
We're not getting the return that we could get in the market. We're not, with zero risk comes low return.
Sure.
And so it means you're going to have to work and save. Like, you know, as an example, retirement's 20 years away.
Yeah.
Right? You're saving X number of dollars. And I think that if we put together a moderate portfolio, we can expect, 6 or 7% a year. And this is based on historical figures and asset allocation and diversification, right? But if the client's like, look, I'm not comfortable risking money in the market.
Yeah.
Well, okay, well, how about this? We can still get you to your goal, but instead of saving 15% of your income, you need to save 40% of your income.
Yeah.
And now you're like, well, I can't save 40% of my income. Now we're at a point where we have to sit and get quiet.
We have to
what
compromise.
Feels right? Does it feel right to save every penny that we possibly can and not risk anything? Or can we start having conversations about what risk is, what volatility is? Can we go through an education process to make you feel comfortable?
Right.
A few years ago, I had the privilege of working with a wonderful couple that had big goals and an incredible work ethic. They made sacrifices and achieved tremendous success and even got to enjoy an early retirement. But tragically, the wife passed away after just 6 months of that retirement life. This experience shook me to the core and led me to reevaluate how I approach financial planning with my clients. I developed an ideology based on 5 pillars of fitness and happiness, and in no particular order, they're pillars of finance, faith, physical and emotional well-being, and mental health. While I'm not a doctor, priest, or psychologist, I believe in the importance of addressing all of these pillars holistically alongside financial fitness. A few months ago, I decided to prioritize my own physical health. I focused on everything from eating well to sleeping better. However, I really struggled to find the right motivation to become a regular at the gym. That's when I reached out to an old friend and fitness professional, Sean Rodman. Sean has been a warfighter in the U.S. Army for 20 years. While serving, he acquired all kinds of fitness certificates and was designated to lead fitness programs for our nation's bravest warriors. Not just the fittest ones heading off to war, but also those injured and needing rehabilitation. When he retired, he started an online fitness company, Parabellum Fitness. He builds workout programs tailored to you, your goals, and even considers your old injuries. He also switches things up from week to week or month to month, so nothing ever gets old. In just a few months, I've experienced better sleep, improved mobility, increased energy, weight loss, and freedom from my old injuries. While I want my clients to achieve incredible financial success, I believe it's all for nothing if you cannot enjoy it. Go check out parabellumfitnessllc.com. That's parabellumfitnessllc.com. Follow them on Instagram or TikTok, really any social media platform. Go follow Parabellum Fitness and reach out to Sean. Set up your first month of programming, mention Money Therapy, and get 25% off. Let's not lose sight of all 5 pillars. Together, let's focus on health and happiness and put energy into creating the best possible life we can. After all, we only get one.
To be like, okay, I do want success. I can't save 40%. So I have to come up with some concessions on making sure I feel the best that I can. And I think...
And that's... Well, to jump in, that's part of what I'm trying to say too is like that decision that if they make a decision 2 years from now, and sometimes if we, educate and, work with the client, a lot of times, the 2 years that we've worked with them, we've brought them from a place of they would ordinarily not at all be comfortable with that decision. And now they're totally comfortable with that decision. Because in the beginning, they may be, assuming something about investing, for instance.
Yeah, knowledge is power.
Exactly. They may think one thing and then talk to us and we go, well, that's not at all the way it is, actually. It's actually this way.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I mean by when I said nudging, that's kind of what I meant, is that you can actually take a client, and that's why it's all about balances. Yeah, today their decision may be what feels right is to stay safe and to keep my money, in the bank.
I have a client coming in later this week, and I think the financially smart decision from the math side of things is clear for them.
Yeah.
But I also know these clients very well. I know their behaviors.
Yeah.
And I think they are prone to money mistakes.
Sure.
So I think in their case, maybe the most financially sound decision isn't the best one.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they're going to have greater capacity to make another mistake. And this is kind of like everything they have.
Yeah.
So I'm going to inform them of both and my concerns. I think at the end, they're going to make the decision that is the best financial decision, but I am worried about what that could be, and not to beat up your example, but I've done that before. I've encouraged someone to take more risk because of what the solution required.
Sure.
And things went really, really well for a while.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden the market did fall out.
Sure.
And they were so uncomfortable that they quit everything.
Yeah.
And so we have to think about the future of our nudging.
Yeah.
And say, look, Mr. or Mrs. Client, like this is absolutely the best decision financially.
Yeah.
From the numbers perspective, from getting you to your goals. But here's what I've learned about you.
Yeah.
So here's option number 2.
Yeah.
And between these two, best decision financially and best decision for you, I don't think you're going to go wrong as long as we trust the process and can continue to grow and become educated.
Yeah.
But the point is right now, if we wait to make a decision until we're educated, there's opportunity cost in that.
Yes.
And that could be detrimental in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
So that's where that trust comes in that I appreciate. I don't want to be some expert in making a decision all by myself.
Yeah.
I want to have this great capacity to make a decision, to trust my decision. Because I think there's really awesome like confidence that we carry when we can trust ourselves.
Yeah.
But I can only trust myself because of the process and the people involved in the process, and I can listen to criticism. I can listen to a whole bunch of stuff. And I hope that I can teach my clients that as well, because I want them to have confidence in their decisions.
Yeah. I think one thing, and I think we got to wrap this up pretty soon, but one thing that I think is really cool, especially about this episode, is I hope that we've conveyed how sometimes it's not as simple as it looks. You know, we kind of went through that, like with that conversation. We thought, okay, this decision is simple, and then we got in the weeds a little bit. And I think I think it was awesome in terms of showing complexity within a certain situation and juggling human emotions. And that's why, again, I think Money Therapy is such a great name for the podcast, because it's exactly what we feel like we go through with clients a lot of the time. Again, find coaches, find those people in your life. Brandon's talking about your process could involve many types of different people to help you through these things. And so look around you in your life and figure out where are your coaches and who can you trust to help you through these processes and through these decision making.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell them about, one more time, the Sunday series, where to find us?
So check out harpethwealthpartners.com. Our emails are on there, and it's really quite simple. Shoot me an email. You can just say, hey, I'd love to be a part of your Sunday series email campaigns. You get our show notes a couple of days before the podcast is released. And the reason that we do that is not so you don't have to listen. We can still encourage you to listen. But I want you to have my show notes so you can think about how this applies to you before Bill and I ever talk about it. Because I think if you can take a couple minutes to read it and about 10 minutes to reflect on it, you can come into the show on Tuesday when the episode comes out and say, all right, I know how I interpreted this, but I want to hear how they do. And you can really personalize some of this stuff, because everybody listens in a different spot. I think the stuff that we're talking about is relatable to so many different people at so many different points in life. But internalizing, I think it becomes stickier when we really make it about us right now. And so you'll have our emails. You'll stay connected. There's some other fun things we send out. But realistically, guys, that there's no like sales tactic or anything.
No.
It's just be connected, because one day I hope that if you do need us for something, or you need a financial professional, that we can be that person. We want to build that trust, and we're giving this out because if you don't need someone, we still want you to be successful.
Yeah.
So that's the Sunday series in a nutshell.
That's it. harpethwealthpartners.com. Make sure that you like and subscribe on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts.
It's on Amazon too.
And Amazon Music.
It's everywhere.
Also on YouTube. So get out there, and we'll see you all next week.
Take care, guys.
We hope you learned something valuable today. We appreciate you including us in your journey towards financial betterment. It is important to us that you know this is for educational purposes only, and not to be considered specific advice for any individual listener. If something we discussed is relevant to you, and you have questions about how it might be uniquely applicable to you, please discuss that with a financial professional, or, of course, we are happy to have further conversations with you about your specific questions, needs, or circumstances. We welcome you to reach out to us via our website, harpethwealthpartners.com or by emailing Brandon at bmc@harpethwealthpartners.com. Securities are offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice is offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and Harpeth Wealth Partners are separate entities from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not to be intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult appropriate qualified professionals prior to making a decision. Investing includes risk, including fluctuating prices and loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Hypothetical examples presented are not representative of any specific investments. Your results may vary. We want to thank you for your time, and we look forward to having you back next week.